What's up, everybody? Welcome to your weekly collectible episode, your weekly fractional update on what's going on in the sports hobby, what's going on with memorabilia, where are prices, where are comps. So we want to welcome you guys back to the show. And overwhelmingly, we've had a ton of good feedback about what we're doing here, both from customers of Collectable and people who just enjoy our content, enjoy our shows. We want to get an understanding of what's happening in the hobby, what's happening with memorabilia. So hopefully you guys stay tuned. It's going to be about a 30, 40-minute show, maybe a little bit less, where we talk about sports cards, vintage, modern, memorabilia, and maybe we'll give you a good gauge on what people are looking at as NFL has kicked off. NBA season's right around the corner. Hockey's coming up, so they have a Wayne Gretzky IPO. That's actually an interesting place to start, Cage, if you don't mind, because there's a lot of places we could go. There's not really a ton of structure to these episodes. So I want to talk about this. So we saw the OPC Gretzky, which is a card that's iconic. It's his rookie card that was cut with wire cutters. We also have the same card in the tops, but overwhelmingly people prefer the OPC. Can you give a little color as to why that is? Why is the OPC so much more revered than the tops?
Well, it's a couple reasons. Number one, the rarity of it. Number two, more importantly, it was not like that when I was growing up for baseball cards. OPC was just Canadian tops, and we're like, oh, we don't want the Canadian one. What do you know, what's the story? But you have to remember, this is a hockey card. So hockey's huge in Canada. It's a hockey card of a Canadian team. You know, this is the Edmonton Oilers, right? And OPG, especially in this particular card, this series, you know, because it's hockey, because it's a Canadian team, because it's, you know, Gretzky and the whole deal, it's just always been that, it's just always been the one that's been more sought after.
All right, simple enough. So let me give you guys a quick update on the indices. So just across the board, they were relatively flat. So they're just like the overarching collectible index. Up at 23% year to date. For this last week, it was down 2%. Collectible sports cards up 24% on the year, down 2.6%, and memorabilia up 18% on the year, down 3.7%. And what's great as we did those Star Stock episodes for a long time, and those have given us kind of an understanding of typically what happens when there is a run up. You see a consolidation stage of sorts. But I'm actually surprised it's not bigger, because in sports cards and memorabilia, especially in the fractional world, they were priced so low below comps for the last few weeks. We saw a run up, and it seems like things kind of flattened out this week. Do you have any macro analysis? Like, let's say I hired you as a financial advisor, Cage. You know, I have $5 million worth of liquid assets. I want you to recommend where to look at memorabilia and sports cards. Do you have kind of like an overarching, like what the next 3-6 months might look like?
Sure. We have football just started, and what we've seen in the last couple of years is that the football cards, they run up in the beginning of the season and they kind of come down based on what happens in the beginning of the season. The only ones that stay high, not even go up from there, but stay high, are the guys that are having, great performances. We've got basketball starting up again. Baseball playoffs are going to be in this window. So we have an interesting next quarter, next three months, where some of the baseball offerings, some of the baseball stuff, you're going to see the kind of, I would say taper off, unless it's somebody who is having a good postseason. So people are probably prospecting on the Mookie Betts stuff, right? That Collectable has, because maybe he has a great postseason, maybe he does something great, wins another championship, you name it. You're going to start to see basketball start to perk up again, I think. Lakers stuff, one of the cards I'm going to talk about today, you'll see some, interest starting to peak in that. And it only hasn't because everybody is football crazy right now. But I think that's going to swing, and you're going to see these kind of things swing. It's going to be, all right, you're going to have this football now, then baseball postseason is about to start. I mean, we're a couple weeks away from that, and then basketball is going to be starting. So it's this crazy, next month that you're going to see things kind of swing, and you're going to see money move into and out of these things based on that move. It actually is a great segue. I mean, we're 5 minutes in, and we probably put people to sleep starting with hockey. I know there are hockey lovers out there, but most people, don't love hockey. One of the cooler things I like to talk about, for folks to really pay attention here, right? Prism Gold, we talked about in one of our recent episodes. It's one of those things that people go nuts for, Prism Gold, because it's rare. We talk scarcity. It's like the perfect recipe for somebody to put in a fractional item. We talk about quarterbacks. We talk about a young quarterback with a Prism Gold. But here's why it's an interesting thing to look at. Not a play yet, right? But it's interesting to look at because I love watching prices react based on actual games, right? So it's difficult to do that with your vintage stuff, right? A lot of these vintage guys, they're not playing, right? It's difficult to do it with a lot of even guys who are playing, like Tom Brady and whatnot. His legacy's set, but these younger guys, the ones that are out there who where you want them to swing from prospecting to, all right, this is now a safer bet. I love watching what happens. And one of the cards I would love to talk about, just to look at, is the Josh Allen Prism Gold rookie, right? It's BGS 9.5. I think there are 4 of them in that grade. Out of the 7 graded, this is one of 4 that got the 9.5. Obviously everybody loves Josh Allen. This card has run up like crazy, and if you could pull up the chart, it would be great to take a look at it. In no means would the overall chart, you have the all chart, look like this is a card where, wow, it's a bargain, right? It's a bargain. So take a look at that all. When you click the all chart, you'll see it had a low of approximately $7, had a high of 21. So it looks like a nice run up chart. But here's what I'd ask you to do. Click on the 1 week chart for me up in the top left corner. And we all know Josh Allen lost this past week, a surprise loss to the Steelers. And there are people who obviously decided that they were going to just go back to the chart for a second, that they were going to jump. Look at that. They were going to jump ship this week on this card. Now, again, it's up 80%, even at the price that it's at now. It's up 80% from its IPO price, right? So I'm not saying it's a bargain right now, but it's one, and this is going to be kind of a theme. It's one I tell you to take a look at and watch, because if you believe he's going to show up and have a great game, and in the next couple of games he's going to be, back up to, potential Super Bowl candidate, MVP candidate, maybe that short-term correction is a play for you. If, however, he comes out today and stinks it up again, maybe this week you are watching and maybe it goes down. Maybe more people jump ship. They don't think he's going to win the MVP. It's one of those things we talk about, the overreaction to week 1. I didn't expect to see it in a card like this, a fractional, item with a price, this, that's going to be as high as this one. So it's one of those things that I will tell you guys to keep an eye on, right? Keep an eye on this price. If he goes out there today, and you might be listening to this Monday morning, but if he had a great Sunday, maybe this corrects automatically and you were able to jump in, Monday morning, he's back on the MVP track. It's just one of those fun ones, because it checks all the boxes, right? It's gold, it's scarce, there are none graded higher in the BGS pop report. And at the valuation that it's at now, currently $54,000, if it sneaks down much lower than that, you have a Josh Allen believer, this is the card. You know what I mean? This is one of those scarce things that you could see a potential buyout on a card like this. So just the first one that kind of caught my attention from that overreaction standpoint.
Let's take a step back, guys, and really digest what is Cage saying here. So this doesn't just apply to Josh Allen here. This applies to any really modern player for NBA and NFL and MLB. You're going to see volatility. And oftentimes we don't like volatility, but volatility actually cuts both ways. So when you see sell-offs like this, performance-based sell-offs, it may be an opportunity to day trade or weekly trade, whatever you call it, with guys that are currently playing, that are in the prospecting phase. Someone that comes to mind is Herbert, for example, but someone else that comes to mind is like a Ja or a Zion. Not so much Mahomes, not so much Brady, because their legacy is set. They're going to add to it, but they're not those
the floor is in, right? The floor is in on those guys. They've already done stuff, right? Josh Allen, people are banking on an MVP. People are banking on a Super Bowl. People are banking on those things. Mahomes already has those, and he could do significantly more. Brady clearly already has those. So what you're talking about is, the potential downside on those, which could be more on Josh Allen.
So it's one of those things that I love spotting patterns. I love learning from movement. So you see this with Josh Allen. And I don't expect this to happen, but let's say Herbert comes out, puts out a stinker versus the Cowboys. This is something that you could expect his cards to go down in value based on performance. And in the beginning, just watch and learn. But you might be able to spot patterns where you see a 20, 30% sell off, the next week a 15% gain, and that's an opportunity for you to make some money.
Well, I mean, can we pull up a good example of this? It's actually somebody that you mentioned. It's another one of those cards where it's like, okay, let's look at all the things that are out there. Can you pull up the Mahomes 17-18 National Treasures?
Sure.
So interesting thing here, and the chart I'd want you to pull up is the 1 week chart on this one.
The laundry tag one?
No, just the National Treasures out of 99. So it's a 17-18 National Treasures RPA. Just pull up the 1 week for me. So they won, but people didn't look at that performance by him as anything so spectacular. And if you're just listening to this and you're not watching it on YouTube, what you'll see is a chart that takes a step down, goes flat, and then takes another step down. So not a very good week for this particular card in Mahomes land. And overall, it's down 30% from its $10 IPO share price at $112,000 market cap. Now, again, he won, but they were losing at halftime. He didn't come out there and blow the doors off a team that they probably should have beaten pretty easily. It's an interesting thing to look at and watch. One of these cards in February with a BGS 9 grade sold for $200,000. Here's what's fun on this one. I am not recommending this one. It's the BGS 8 and 5. This is another one where I would say keep an eye on it, right? Because the floor is low on these. What this one has going for it, even though it's a BGS 8.5, is it's got a cool 2-color patch, right? And that's please talk. Go for it.
No, I'm glad you brought that up. It was the question I was going to ask. How much do you give? How much importance do you give for 2-color patches? So,
right.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
So if you were to go on eBay right now, you would see this is the RPA out of 99. You'd see a couple of these cards, right? And you'd see a couple of them in the same grade. Not that much more expensive than the 112 market cap, but they have single color. They have white, right? And you'd see some that are maybe even better grade, not that much higher than this, but also not as nice a patch. So the patch in these cards does matter. It really does. What my take on this one is it's almost like a wait and see. If this thing starts to move any lower, and you're talking about it becoming a 5-figure card, that's when I think you can really find a bargain here, because this is the card. This is the RPA out of 99 National Treasure. There are not a ton of these out there. There'll never be enough of these for the demand for Mahomes cards. It was IPO'd at a market cap of 160. It's now got a market cap of 112. It's come down. Couple things to look at on this. It's got some really good eye appeal because the centering, the edges, 9s, corners are 9.5. It has a surface grade of 7.5, which is odd. You don't usually see that on 8.5 cards like this. I don't know what it is. I can't, at first glance look at it. I'm sure if I had the card in hand, I'd be able to see what that is. But as far as 8.5s go, it didn't impact the auto because the auto is a grade 10. It's one of those things where it's like it's not obvious, and it has the eye appeal because of the corners 9.5 and the centering, the edges 9, which I think are the more important grades. It has the eye appeal of a nicer card than the 8.5. So you have that going for it and that cool patch in there. It's just one to monitor. Like I said, there are others available now, but this is just one that that if it continued to go down, potentially is a buyout candidate, especially because, and I have to mention this, right? So it IPO'd at 160. The owner retained 81% of the equity in this. So you're starting to get close now to, what the owner retained in this initially. So it's one of those things where, the even the owner himself might say, I'll buy the rest of these shares at a buyout rate, or somebody else out there
at a discount, right?
So it's one of those things where I have to mention those. I have to mention when there is retained equity. A couple of the cards with retained equity I'll be mentioning today are ones that I look at, only because if you look at this, it fits the same box as that Josh Allen, right? It's one of those where, okay, week 1 didn't go the way Mahomes won. Yeah, sure, he got the win, but it was a tougher test for him than people thought it was going to be. And then you see the weekly chart on this card is down. If that trend continues, you might be able to find a bargain on a Mahomes National Treasures RPA at 99 out of 99, and that you don't really find bargains on a card like that too often.
A lot there. I mean, interesting that this got a 10 auto because it doesn't look fully finished here. But the surface thing is interesting, Cage. And I'm not a grading expert, but a lot of new-time graders, first-time graders, especially even with cards like that, sometimes they don't realize a fingerprint, BGS does not wipe that down.
Right.
And sometimes it's actually as simple as that. So, yeah, this is definitely susceptible to a buyout.
So are you trying to say maybe this is a candidate to cross over to PSA, given the recent crossover success on cards like this, RPAs?
I mean, you throw up softballs and we just knock them out of the park, man. We're vibing. It does.
So can I throw another card bucket out there that fits in that profile? That is,
I'm curious if you think if it's the LeBron Exquisite 8.5.
Oh, I'll let you talk about it. Go right ahead.
Is that the one you were talking about?
So there's that, and I also have a baseball play, which is an interesting one. But go for it. I'll talk about the LeBron.
Well, first off, I think what PSA's kind of message was with that crossover, Cage, I don't know if you got this too, was like, hey, we kind of want nice cards in PSA slabs, right? It's funny. We talked about this yesterday on the show. There was a time where PSA wasn't the standard for high-end cards, right? It was BGS. And now PSA, you're seeing them have record sales. You see the market is kind of favors them. I'm curious if we do start seeing these kind of buyout opportunities for high-end cards, and where do people go to buy them out? I mean, eBay is raccoon NFT bones at this point with their listings. So you either are competing at Heritage, PWCC, but that's auction or buy it, right? But I think these fractional sites, Cage, like that raccoon bones joke.
Yeah, I did.
These fractional sites are going to be susceptible for high-end cards because first off, one, they take amazing photos. So someone could just look at the photo and be like, this has potential to cross. I think these fractional sites have some opportunity to be for some kind of buyout opportunity. So I'll pull it up. I don't know if it will be bought out. I don't know how it will cross, but it's definitely interesting when you saw that LeBron that crossed with PSA this week that got 10-10. I mean, Cage, look at the subgrades, right? The subgrades on the previous LeBron was 9-5, 10-10, 9 corners. I think it was 9-5 surface. So it was a min gen. Does this one, if you cross this to PSA, does this possibly get a PSA 9, which is a huge upgrade from a BGS 8.5, and then you have this beautiful patch here? I don't know, but it's something that I'm certainly thinking about. This also has this retained equity, right? Does the owner of this come back and buy it out? So there's a lot here.
The talking point though is are the BGS ones gonna see an increase in price because people are talking about this? Because hey, now this might be an example of one that could cross. You got another one with similar stuff, right? Look at, and it's up a bit, obviously, but it's been flat for a while on fractional. Look at the LeBron SP Authentic. It's a BGS 9.5 with a 10 auto. And it's got 10 on centering. The surface is a 9. And it's only got a market cap.
Cage, could you repeat the card? I'll pull it up as you're talking about it.
Sure. It is the LeBron 03 SP Authentic BGS 9.5. It's the cool rookie one where he's like dunking the ball like this. And it's got the auto across where his leg is. It's 03 SP Authentic BGS. Yeah. So that also, same kind of thing, right? It's got a 10. It's got a 9, but the 9's on surface. Like, are people going to look at this and say, okay, this one has a market cap of 68,000 in a BGS 9.5. What would it be worth in a PSA 10.10? And is this one that's a candidate for it now? Is this one that could be a 10.10? The last public sale on this was in March. 85.1 was the sale, so more than it is now.
It's a beautiful card.
It's a great card. You can take a look at the chart on this one and see, it's clearly up. I think it IPO'd at like $25 a share. It's at 34. It was as high
Wow.
If you go back at like 92, I mean, it was a
92,
huge
right.
spike on this one. A little more than 6 months ago, beginning of the year, when all the stuff kind of went crazy. But it's
No
kind of been
retained equity either.
correct. And it's just one of those cards, right, where could this be one that becomes a 10-10 and all of a sudden is worth significantly more? It's funny just because it's not a conversation that a lot of people were having before PSA did their swap over to the 10-10 on the LeBron. So, to me, you could look at a bunch of them. The Tiger Woods SP Authentic BGS 9.5 that Collectable has up. A lot of those, a lot of the 9.5s, which were trading at 30, 35, 40 maybe percent of a PSA 10, do those get a little bit of a bump now? Because, we saw that's something that was a min gem, right? I mean, it wasn't even like a quad, right? It had a 9, right? It had a 9 subgrade, right? The LeBron that crossed over.
It had a 9 subgrade, but 10 centering, which people
10,
love 10
yeah.
centering. On this card, it's a little bit tougher because it doesn't have a border, so people care a little bit less about 10 centering on those cards, but it does. It 9 surface, 9.5 corners, 9.5 edges, 10 centering.
So another one that I'm going to
Look at
point
these
out,
guys,
right?
real quick. Look at this guy's
Yeah.
kicks. I don't even know what he's rocking here. It's like military boots. He's done.
They're Shaquille O'Neal's from Payless. So let me pull up one that's just kind of like a different way of going, right? For a couple of different reasons, and it'll be the last we talk about this whole BGS PSA, craziness. I happen to like these cards. It's another one where it's almost kind of like a wait and see what happens, guys. Like if this comes down much more from where it's sitting, does it become sort of like a bargain? And it's another one where it's BGS 9.5s. It's got 9 subs, definitely. So, you got to throw that in there. But can you capitalize on what people are talking about, this whole transfer over? And it's none other than the basket of 2 BGS 9.5 1993 SP foil Derek Jeter. Right, so it's one of these things too, where people kind of bought in on the run up, right? Hall of Fame, all this other fun stuff, and the 9.5 on these, there's no shortage of them compared to the PSA 10. But do me a favor, if you could pull up the 1993 SP foil rookie basket BGS 9.5. When you pull it up, what you'll notice is that there are 2 in this, 2 9.5s, both with the same subgrades, right? So they are. 9.5 centering, 9.5 edges, which is important on this foil card. The corners are 9 and the surface is 9.5, right? So they both have the same subgrades, right? There have been
corners are 9 cage.
Yep, corners are 9. Corners are 9, surface 9.5, centering 9.5, edges 9.5.
Really tough grade. Tough grade.
So out of the 16,500 BGS grades on this, right? There are only 270 BGS 9.5s, right? And there are no, I think that there's like 24 PSA 10s. And a PSA 10 in March 2021, a PSA 10 of this card sold for $690,000, right? You're getting 2 BGS 9.5s here. And they've sold as high in this year as $40,000 each, right? This one IPO'd 2 9.5s at $10 a share. $99,750 for the 2. It's traded 40% down. It's now at $6 a share, $59.85, so about $30,000 per card. Is this one that people will kind of chat about as, hey, could one of these be a 10 and be a $500,000 card? There's only 270 and there's 2 of them in this lot. It's not one that I'm saying jump on immediately, right? It's not saying one. Jeter was kind of in the news a little bit here and there, and I think there was a run up, and then people were hoping with Hall of Fame and all that other stuff that it would kind of pop. But if you look at what stuck out to me, if you look at the 1 week performance, a week ago this was trading at $7.37, right? $7.37, and now it's at $6, which means it's down 20% from the high of $7.37 to the $6 that it's at now. What happened? What did he do to cause a 20% drop off? Most likely nothing. It's probably people who were holding this, hoping that he'd be in the news and it would spike. It didn't. That happened. And let me get out now and put my money into a basketball card, or let me get out now and put my money into, a football quarterback, whatever it is. So these are those interesting opportunities where I look, okay, this card is significantly lower than what it was, but because we're giving you, the full picture here, this card during 2021, it's traded in a range, and sure, it's been as high as $40,000 for 9.5s, but there have been 9.5s sell for as low as $22,000 this year. So think about that. A pair of them would be low end 44,000, high end 80,000. You're now in the 50s, right? 59. So it's not at the bargain basement where people got them at 22, but it's getting closer to that than the high side. So it's one of them, again, keep an eye on. I don't see any retained equity in this one. It's one where, it kind of triggered my alerts on the price is now in a range where it becomes, a good buy. And if it drops any further than that, I think it becomes a really good buy. And it's got that whole narrative, right? The 9, 5, 10 potential. People look at those.
I gotta tell you, with Jeter is such an interesting guy because Jeter is the definition, in my opinion, of provenance. He's someone who is a very good player whose accomplishments have maybe been kind of blown up because of his team accomplishments, if that makes sense. He was very good, but he wasn't. Would you put him as the best shortstop of all time?
No. I don't even think he was the best shortstop who played during his era.
Right. But the story, like his personality, his charisma, I think he's going to be in baseball legacy, baseball history for a long time. And I mean, he's the minority owner, I believe, in the Marlins. My point with this is Jeter is somebody that he's going to be around for the next 40, 50, 60 years. And I think he's maybe one of the best investments. Looking at how much money people are throwing out Trout, to me, Jeter is a no-brainer at basically the same prices because of, one, his accomplishments, but two, the personality and him being around the game. I think Jeter is an amazing investment, not just for these cards, just across the board.
Well, he's also a Yankee, and you can't underestimate that. Like you can throw out some Yankee names right now: Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, Mickey Mantle, all these amazing guys who play for the Yankees. Jeter's the only one to get 3,000 hits with them. I mean, other players got their 3,000 hit while playing for the Yankees, but he had 3,000 hits. All those names I just mentioned, no 3,000 hits, right? And Jeter, he kind of at the end of his career, he got hurt a little bit there. He was one of the few players out there who could make a run at the hit king for a while there. People were talking about, hey, if he plays long enough, he's basically getting 200 hits per season. He could make a run at Pete Rose. It didn't happen. He finished in the top 6 all time in hits in the game. Right now that's not really, what people are in love with, right? It's now the home run or nothing. And you don't have a lot of people hitting for average. I think, the top batting average in both leagues is under 320 right now. So people don't really care so much about hits. They care about getting on base. You can walk. They care about the 3-run home run. The game has kind of switched. But, back when I was watching as a kid, it was you got up there and you tried to get a hit. And your batting average, was what people looked at. It was, let me see who's got the most hits. That mattered. It's going to be very hard the way today's game is played for a player to approach the hit total that he had, just because it's not the way people are playing. There are not many Ichiros playing right now. You know what I mean? So in that regard, great. He was consistent. Even if he started off having a slump, he was always gonna, revert to the mean. Back of the baseball card was always gonna be there. And he came up clutch in big playoff moments, right? And when you do that on the biggest stage in the game, when you do that in New York, in the pressure cooker that's New York, that has killed talent. There are a lot of talented players in the league right now who came to New York and sucked here. They were great before they came here. They've been great after. They just can't do it in the pressure cooker. All that adds to the mystique and the allure of Derek Jeter. New York, They want to have a hero. That's why Babe Ruth. That's why you have Mickey Mantle. That's why, Reggie Jackson, Don Mattingly, like every generation seems to have their Yankee great. They're looking for one now. They don't really have one right now. But, yeah.
So two more things, and then we'll get to the IPOs because the slate of IPOs this week is absolutely stunning. It's really cool to see.
Yeah. So I've seen the IPOs. You got any cards? You got any other cards? 2 more? You got one more? I have one more card, and then I'll let you take it away on the IPOs and memorabilia.
Okay, go ahead.
So I have a card that I another one, just keep an eye on, right? Because they're also a retained equity, you name it. But why I say keep an eye on this is I think it's as under the radar as you can get for 3 first ballot Hall of Famers, and under the radar for this season.
Wade, Bosch, LeBron.
Yeah. So that's the card, right? So and the play is made because if you look at the scoring Kings card, right, the Magic Johnson, Larry Bird with Julius Erving in the middle, that's one of those really cool cards that has really run up recently in PSA 10, especially, right? Rob Go bought one, and then all of a sudden, you see every sale after that has been higher and higher and higher, hundreds of thousands of dollars, $500,000. Card is an impressive card. This particular card that I'm talking about now, and you can pull it up, the 03 Fleer Crystal Trio. It's odd because it's not one that people even know about, right?
Yeah, I didn't know about it for a long time.
But to me, it looks like that scoring leaders card. It's got all 3 of them on there. And what makes it the Crystal is it's numbered out of 50.
Yep.
So it checks a big box here in the scarcity section, right?
Can we pause just real quick? Because this card blew my mind for a while. So, guys, it's the same card. So you've seen this card before. Yep. What makes this card 290,000 and the other one's about 10,000 is here. If you go to the back of this card, it's identical all the way through, same look and everything, but this one is numbered out of 50.
Yep.
This is actually kind of cool, Cage. This is 22. If this was an NFT, this would be close to LeBron James jersey number, but point is numbered out of 50. So I didn't want to cut you off. I just wanted to, because I had that same question.
Right. So think about this, right? How much the score. Now, keep in mind, of course, that Larry Bird, that is the one. Like, that's the Larry Bird, Magic Johnson. If you want to get that card, that's their card, right? There aren't a million versions. There aren't a million variations. There aren't a million. That's the card. But do you know how many of those there are in PSA 10?
The Crystal?
No, the Jordan Bird scoring leaders, the Magic Johnson.
Can't be more than 25, 30, right?
24. There are 24 PSA 10s, right? And that card is $500,000, right? Now, this card, I think, looks like a current version of that. Do you know how many PSA 10s there are of this?
Can't be more than 5.
3.
Yeah.
There were 3 PSA. So it checks a lot of boxes. It's a numbered rookie LeBron, scarcity like crazy, right? If somebody wants to have this card. Now, the negatives, right? A couple negatives on this one, right? 1, there are a lot of LeBron rookies. There are a lot of cards to choose from, unlike that scoring Kings for the rookie of Magic and Bird, right? So there are a ton of LeBrons just on Collectable, for people to choose from, right? Second, this is a difficult card to value because there are only 3 PSA 10s. So comping this is a difficult thing. And, people will notice, of course, that right as this becomes tradable, there happens to be a comp available. And the comp is the February 2021 $307,999. So a $308,000 valuation on this one for comp. This one IPO'd with a market cap of $358,000. All right. And here's the kicker. Retained equity. The consigner, who probably doesn't want to give this away because there's only 3 of them, retained $246,400 in equity on this card of the 358. So you're talking about 2/3 basically of the equity retained with the owner. But now with the way the card has traded,
are you sure, Cage?
Yeah, it's on the bottom of the Collectable app. It says it right on there page.
Oh, okay.
The consigner is retaining $246,400 in equity. I try to do my research, even though I'm doing this all on the phone. I try to make sure I have my notes right.
Sometimes it says it up here. That's why I was asking.
Yeah. So 246. But now with the way this is traded, pull up the 1 week chart on this one, and what you'll notice is that this one hit a high of 1010 a little while ago. This week started at 999. Had a little bit of a crash fall there, 530 for a second. Somebody was able to scoop in, a fun one. But it's down to 815. It's already down, 18.5%. The market cap's 291. It's one to watch because, it's now below what the only other, comp was out there. And you already know, sometimes the retained equity is interesting. Sometimes I like to look at it like, institutional investors, right? You like to take a look at when you're trading a stock. All right, well, if this institutional, investor has 40 or 50% of it or 30% of it, and it's known, it's public because, you have to announce when somebody owns more than 5% of something, you have to file with the SEC. This retained equity in this, it's almost like a floor. You know what I mean? Like this is one of those things where I don't envision it going much lower than where it is now. If it does, it might be one to try to scoop up, get a little share of it, because it's not a card you're going to be able to buy. It's one of those things. There's 3 PSA 10s. This is the exact kind of card where if you're a believer in it, fractional works for you. But what's cooler, the additional layer on here is there are not many cards where you can play the LeBron-Melo combo that are going to be playing together in the Lakers this year. And does this become a cool play on if the Lakers win a championship with LeBron and Melo together? He's already won with Wade, right? Does he now win a championship this year with Carmelo, and it becomes an even cooler card because of
it becomes
that?
very iconic.
So
guys, I did a little research. I actually spoke to a collectible team. So something like this, when that happens, remember, this isn't the most liquid market.
Right.
And for different cards, it becomes extremely illiquid. Yep. So for the Jordan, for example, PSA 10, that might have more liquidity than this card, right?
Yep.
So when you see something like this, and note, if you guys are out there in collectible listening, a lot of people have been asking us, can you build kind of a watch list of potential investments? So something for you guys to think about. But this is someone who wants to get out of an investment. And what they need to do is, if they own, maybe 20 shares, sure, there might be someone, offering to a bid at $9 and then $8, 5 shares at $9, 5 shares at $8, but they want to get out of their position. They have to go all the way down to 530, and their loss can be your gain. So that doesn't just apply to this card. That applies to really any of these kind of more liquid investments. There might be just some opportunities where somebody who wants to get their cash out, and you come in and kind of, like I said, their loss is your gain. So something to keep in mind.
Yep.
Tiger Woods, I've said this, I beat this to a pulp. His stuff, I think it's his approaching Ryder Cup memorabilia, putter. His cards have seen a gain this week, so just something to keep in mind. Guys, look at this slate of IPO. So we got the Patrick Mahomes 1/1 2017 Contenders card. Beautiful card, BGS 9. Looks a little bit overgraded, if you ask me. It does, but still beautiful 1/1 Patrick Mahomes Contenders card. We have the Wayne Gretzky 1979 PSA 9. Beautiful card. Look at this Willie Mays 1968 signed Giants jersey. I mean, Cage, come on now.
It's gorgeous.
Got this Mayweather, beautiful. It's iconic. Mayweather's interesting because maybe the best boxer of all time, probably top 5. Cage, would you say?
Yep. Yeah.
His rookie card, very cool card. And this is one. I mean, this is how many of these do you see in an 8.5? And look at this 8.5 too. It's pretty nicely centered. It's a little bit uneven, but that's what happens with these kind of hand-cut cards. Look at this card, Cage. That's a beautiful Jackie Robinson, 1952 tops. And you say it all the time. First off, it's in a PSA slab already, but that PSA 8.5 is a big deal. That's not a grade they give out a lot. You're going to see a lot more PSA 8s. This one's interesting, a PSA 8.5. This is one I could see eventually getting bought out because of its eye appeal, its beauty. It's a really nice copy.
I like it. I mean, there are cards for Jackie that predate that. It's the only potential. I don't want to say negative on it, but it's Jackie's got cards in the 40s, he's got the 48 Leaf and that kind of stuff. But that is a gorgeous card. 52 tops is an iconic set, and you just don't see them in that higher grade. Can I switch up on you and you can kind of talk about the IPOs and that kind of stuff? Fractional, it used to be the home of baseball vintage. It used to be, hey, we're going to fractional a Ty Cobb, or we're going to do a Honus Wagner, and you name it. This week we saw a lot of cards that had run up in traditional sports, a lot of football, some basketball. That they had been up 5%, 6%, 7%, and then boom, they kind of fell this week. The Mahomes National Treasure is a good example. The Josh Allen Gold Prism is a good example. The alternate sports stuff. You talk about Tiger Woods. You gave a tennis play this week with Djokovic. The Serena Net Pro basket that moved up this week in its first week of trading a lot. The Ali belt has moved up a lot.
Yep.
And did you see the IPO of your new favorite soccer player, Erling Haaland? Did you see what happened with that one? You want to talk about that a little bit?
I'm conflicted because it's sold out in half a second.
Yeah, sold out less than a minute.
Yeah, but I'm not a huge. I mean, I think it was priced really well. I think that's the kicker here. It was priced really well. 13K for, I mean, there's 8 of them, about 1,500 a piece. It was priced fairly well, and it was my play of the week. My thing with modern, especially modern soccer players that are playing right now, to me, I'm a control freak, Cage. Cage knows this because he gets to work with me, and he's like, "Are we gonna finish this NFT drop website, or are you gonna do edit number 644?" I like the flexibility of getting out of my position, and when you IPO into kind of a set like that, you're a holder for at least 60 days. That being said, what that shows me, Cage, is how much demand there is for him.
Oh yeah.
Forget about
what
the
it shows me. It shows me what I was talking about with vintage baseball, and now soccer selling out under a minute, is that fractional. It's got a different audience now. You know what I mean? It's not just the old guys with the vintage binders at the show. It's soccer, alternate sports, tennis. This is an interesting thing, man. It's it's obviously reaching an audience that it previously wasn't reaching. So yeah, anything else with the IPOs or anything else you want to chat about?
I gotta give.
If you're listening tonight, right? I mean, if you happen to catch this right as we release this, you see the big Sunday night IPO. So it's it'll be up there. It might sell out if you're catching this Monday morning. But Mahomes IPO, the contender
Mahomes,
Super Bowl,
1 of 1. I'll pull it up here.
Super Bowl ticket autograph 101, which behind the shield you could argue is his second best card out there, and that's IPOing. There wasn't much of the Kobe rookie sneakers left. I'm sure those will sell out quickly as trading begins this week.
So where I'm at on that, I guess Cage might have had to drop off here for a second. I wanted to give one last shout out to Rally. This is a Collectable podcast, and Otis as well. Just the fractional space as a whole, you're seeing a lot of cool stuff enter space. Like this past week, they fractionalized the CryptoPunk. I think there will be more of that. To me, what it shows, and it's piggybacking on what Cage said, is this whole fractional audience, it's growing. It's no longer like that vintage baseball, the Babe Ruth, the 10, 6 million, 3 million, the 7-figure cards. That's what fractional started out with, but I think we're seeing a lot more Gen Z, millennial, young money come in, and they want to not only have stake and ownership in whatever it is, they want to show off that they're owners, right? There's a little bit of the virtue signaling or showing that, hey, I do own this huge asset. So, Cage, what I was saying is I got to give a shout out to the whole fractional space. So it's piggybacking on what you said, in the sense that like this week we saw a CryptoPunk fractionalized, and like you mentioned, this used to be a vintage baseball, right? I couldn't afford a Babe Ruth. I'll go into fractional. But what we're seeing now is millennial and Gen Z who want to not only have a stake or a position in these high ticket cards, but they also want to show them off, right? Yep. A big part of what I saw with the CryptoPunk was, hey, look, I'm into this investment, right? Yep. Look. And there's a bit of that, right? Like we're all out here trying to find our tribe, trying to be a part of a community, trying to show like, I like this, or this is who I invest, right? When you invest in something, you speak about who you are and what you enjoy. So I love to see this fractional space growing in popularity, not just in vintage baseball, just across the board. So that's all I really wanted to say to kind of put a bow on it.
Yep. No, makes sense. Memorabilia still's looking good. And IPOs, you talked about the Gretzky coming up this week, right? The Willie Mays game used jersey, the Floyd Mayweather. I mean, you talk about all these things that are IPO'd. Cool slate of IPOs coming up. And, you want to talk about the LeBron exquisite RPA selling out at a 1.3 million. Look, you have to do them both, right? So I think that LeBron exquisite IPO from this past week that sold out at 1.3 is great. It's a good example of something that was priced attractively. But can you spend 2 minutes talking about the Brady championship ticket 8.5?
Sure.
Because obviously one ended last night. So can we chat about that one? Just because we got to get both sides of the equation, right?
Sure. Well, first off, I mean, if we look at who's like in total volume and total like whose cards have been sold the most in the last 2 months, Brady's have to be up there. I mean, they're in every single auction. Everyone's chasing Brady, whether that's his contenders out of 99, if that's a PSA 10, or if that's his gold or his prisms and all that. So there's an influx of supply on the market. And you talk about that a lot too. So we saw one end at PWCC Premier Auction for, I think, 1.5 mil and change. The one on Collectable is about 2.1, 2.2. So I'm curious how it's going to perform, because at the same time, who's selling, right? No one's really going to be selling shares of Brady. So it's interesting to see how this Premier Auction ended. It's obviously at a discount to what Collectable is offering. But at the same time, if you're in Brady cards right now, there's not much desire or interest to sell either, right? Especially if you're fractional. So that's really it. Relative to the last auction, it seems overpriced, but we're about to find out. We'll see I expect there not to be very much activity, maybe 2, 3, 4% down this week, maybe 1 or 2 sellers who own a few shares.
That one's IPO'd. That one, the championship ticket, I think there's 13% remaining. What it may run into on that one is that it may be difficult to fill the remaining spots on it, because people just see the comp sell for just under 1.6, and they have a market value of 2.15. So I think you're right. I think the people who bought in are not going to sell, and it's just one comp, and comps are all over the place. And the Premier Auction, it's an interesting one, right? Because PWCC, the comps have been a little lower on their stuff, to be honest. I mean, I'll just give you a perfect example. Last night, Golden had an auction end. It wasn't one of their crazy auctions. It wasn't even a sports auction. It was like comics and stuff. So it didn't even have a lot of the big eyes on it. But they had a Charizard PSA 10 first edition 1999 in Golden, and they also had one in the auction for PWCC. Both old certs, both old numbers, and the one in Golden sold for significantly more than the one sold for in PWCC. Same card, neither of them looked significantly better, and yet the Golden auction got a higher comp than the PWCC one. So, when you're talking about cards like this, it really does matter what one person comes in and sees it, where it is, and that kind of stuff. The next one of these Brady championship ticket 8.5s that's sold, if it sells in Golden, might be 2.3, and all of a sudden the 2.15 that you have on a market cap here looks low. So, if one comp, you talked about liquidity on these things, it's really important, right? Because, these things, they kind of move, and I wouldn't go too nuts over one sale price on these things.
Love you, Luca Nation. We'll be back next week. It's been a busy week. We got a lot going on this week. So follow us on Instagram. Most of you do that listen to us. We appreciate all of the support. We got a lot of things going on, and hopefully we're delivering the content that you're looking for. Feel free to engage with us. Feel free to ask us questions offline if there's something that we missed or you need clarification. We're always available. And we got to say thank you to all of our sponsors, our partners. You guys make it easy for us. So shout out to all of you guys for supporting what we do. And really our goal is to grow the hobby. It's to grow the collectible space, the fractional space, so that we could educate people, they could benefit, they could learn and make some money hopefully as well. So thank you, Luca Nation. Have an amazing weekend, an amazing start to your week.
Thanks, everybody.